Hey everybody, welcome back. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends. If you want to know what we have going on this week, please check out our website at hopepd.org. And if you have any questions, email me personally at nick@hopepd.org. And we're on week 2 of Break It Down. So let's go ahead and get started. What's the craziest true story you've ever heard? A story filled with so many weird and wild details that you wonder how it could possibly even be true. Today, I've got one more to add to your list. Many, many years ago, there was a great healer. This man was ridiculed and loved. I guess it depends on what your point of view was. One day, he was walking and saw a man who had been blind since birth. The healer's friends asked him why this man was born blind and if it was his parents' fault. The healer said, "Of course not." The healer said, "As long as it is day, we must do what I was born to do. And when it's night, no one can work, for I am the light of the world." After the healer said this, he spit on the ground. Weird, right? Well, it gets even weirder. He made mud out of that spit and rubbed it on the man's eyes and told him to go wash it off. I bet people around him couldn't believe it. Maybe even thought how rude of him to do that to a blind man. But when the blind man washed his face, he could see. Crazy, right? You want to know what's even crazier? That's an actual story from the Bible. That healer was Jesus. Now, you're probably thinking what I was thinking when I first heard the story. That's in the Bible? Isn't the Bible supposed to be helpful for my life? What could this story possibly have to do with me or my life today? Well, I bet you can relate. Maybe you've heard that the Bible is supposed to change your life and that it's a way God communicates with you. But when you read a little bit of it and thought, wait, that doesn't even make sense. I'm not even sure I understand how it is supposed to help me. It's like a note you find dropped in the hallway at school. You pick it up, you read it, but you don't know the whole story behind it. In other words, you have no background information. You don't know who wrote it, you don't know who they wrote it for, and you don't know what they're talking about or why they wrote it. So you have to do your best to figure out what they're trying to communicate. You might learn something from the note, but for the most part, you're just guessing about what they're talking about. I think sometimes we try to read the Bible in the same way. Here, I'm gonna read a random verse from Philippians. Watch out for those people acting like dogs. When it comes to the Bible, sometimes we randomly pick a spot and start reading. Just like I did right now. We try to figure out what we're reading and how it applies to our lives. We try to understand it without any context, without any background or details about why it was written or who it was written to. And because of that, we struggle to understand what it meant when it was written and what it means for us today. Can you imagine being in a fight with your friends and turning to the Bible for answers only to come to that random verse? You'd probably be like, what? How does this actually help me figure out what to do with my friendship? See what I mean? When we don't know the whole story, we don't understand the point of what we're reading. We don't understand the message or the heart or the purpose of any of it. And that can sometimes leave us feeling like maybe some things we've been told about the Bible being helpful or changing our lives might not be true at all. What if we approach the Bible like it was actually full of writings by real people that can help us navigate through our lives today? Let me break that down for you. In order to get this, I think we have to start by learning just a little bit more about the Bible itself. For starters, we know that it's really old. That has been around for 1,000 years, thousands of years actually, and people really care a lot about it, enough to make it the best-selling book of all time. So the first part of the Bible is the Old Testament. It tells about how people followed the one true God before Jesus came. And the New Testament was written after Jesus' death and resurrection about 2,000 years ago. It's about his life and the life of his first followers as they learned how to be his friends and how to follow him. So how could something written so many years ago in a culture and a world so different from our own actually help us right now? Well, let's take the Declaration of Independence for example. Don't worry, this history lesson is almost over. Just listen to the first very long sentence of the Declaration of Independence and see what I mean. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and the equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. What? That was totally confusing and doesn't make a ton of sense in our culture today, does it? Just think about what it would be like if the founding fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence were here right now, trying to teach us about life today. They wouldn't be able to talk to us about TikTok or Tom Brady or why In-N-Out is so delicious. And they for sure wouldn't be able to help us navigate texting on our crush from math class. It doesn't mean we should ignore what they had to say back then altogether. In fact, some things are actually helpful and important for us still today. And that's because some wisdom doesn't change over time. The same is true for the Bible. Every book, every verse, every letter you read in the book won't always make sense. And that's because it's written in a specific time, culture, and set of circumstances. You can imagine just how different life was in ancient Middle East than it is today. But that doesn't mean we all throw it away just because it doesn't make sense and complete absolute sense to us now. And one of the best things we can do to understand scripture is to apply it to our lives, is to put everything into context. To understand more about who wrote it, why they wrote it, when they wrote it, and who they were writing it to. Let me give you an example. One of the most popular verses in the Bible was written by a guy named Paul, as he was writing to the people of the ancient city Philippi when he made this statement: "For I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me." This verse is great on coffee mugs and in Instagram bios. But if we look at it literally, it doesn't make a ton of sense. We can't do everything because of Christ. We can't fly. We can't read minds. We can't get straight A's just because reading and agreeing with this verse. If we take this verse just by itself without context to what Paul was trying to say, we don't see the whole story. In fact, this is the way many people wind up totally misusing or misunderstanding the Bible. A lot of really bad things have been done and said by people who didn't understand the whole story of what was going on in Scripture. But if we take a step back and break down the context or the background of Paul's life when he wrote it, it will make a lot more sense. See, Paul wrote this verse from prison. He had been arrested for telling people about Jesus, which wasn't popular with the people who were in charge 2,000 years ago. He told the people he was writing the letter to that no matter what he went through or how hard life got, he was confident that he would be okay, even in prison. But why would he think that? Because he had found that Jesus gave him all the strength he needed to make it through those hard times. I don't know about you, but that makes a lot more sense to me. That changes the way I see the verse. And even though I'm not in the same position or place Paul was when he wrote it, I understand more about why he wrote it. It helps. See, when you know the whole story, things make more sense. So if knowing the whole story can help us with one well-known but often misunderstood statement from the writings in the Bible, what if it could help us with every other part too? If we want to understand the Bible better, we have to explore the full story of what's going on. In fact, that's my challenge to all of you this week. The next time you read something in the Bible, stop and ask yourself, if you know the whole story. To do this, you can ask a few questions to help you figure out the whole story, and then hopefully things will make a bit more sense. First, who wrote this and who were they writing it to? If we begin to understand who the author was and who they were writing to, we can better understand what is going on to motivate the writing itself. Number two, why was it written? If we want to know what something in the Bible means for us, we should try to better understand why it was written in the first place. And third, is it helpful to me right now? Sometimes you'll come across things in the Bible that may not seem helpful to you right now. It doesn't mean that God doesn't have a purpose for what you're reading, or that it won't be helpful someday in the future. It just may not be the helpful answer, encouragement, or solution you needed in that moment. Don't stress out trying to figure out exactly what you're supposed to apply to every part of what you're reading to what you're experiencing now. Instead, trust that the details don't always seem helpful now and might be showing you something unique about God that you'll discover more about later. This is one of the best parts of reading the Bible. The more you read it, the more it seems to reveal meaning and purpose for unique moments and phases of your life. There's something helpful in everything you read, but you may not always see it right away, and that's okay. One of the cool things about reading the Bible is that you've said yes to Jesus, and He knows everything you're going to face in your life. The Bible might not have been written to you, but it was written for you. This is the coolest thing about reading the Bible. God is making sure that there's something helpful and purposeful in everything you read. You may not always see it right away, and that's okay too. Remember, when you know the whole story, things are gonna make more sense. So to help you understand the whole story, try reading these questions and keeping these questions in mind. If you have any more questions, you can always contact me. I have a Snapchat, Chef Nick 2011, and I hope you guys have an awesome week. I can't wait to see you at Fortnite on Thursday night. All right, guys, take care.